This is completely repugnant to every democratic system and to the society that we know and love. The people of our country are upset about it, and I'm determined that in Alabama we're not going to have a breakdown of law and order, and we're not going to conduct ourselves in such a way that anyone gets the idea that we will condone this sort of thing.
Well, of course, I just haven't thought about that. I have thought about, in connection with the shooting of Senator Kennedy, which is another example, the personification of the breakdown of law and order in this country, in which we have allowed people to take the law into their own hands, to conduct themselves in the manner that they see fit, the law and the majority of the people's interest and safety to the contrary notwithstanding. And we saw the shooting of the President of the United States. We saw the assassination of Martin Luther King. Now we see the shooting of Senator Kennedy. And we see also the threats unearthed upon other people in government in our country. And it's got to be stopped. And the American people are going to demand that we start thinking about the masses of people in our country and their safety, instead of always being concerned with the so-called rights of the defendant, which we should be concerned with, but we're certainly intelligent enough to protect the public. And I again say this is another example personified of the lawless state that exists in many parts of our country. We saw the Supreme Court the other day render a decision which in effect vitiates or does away with the death penalty, which means now people can, whatever they might do, they can know that they're not going to the death penalty is not there. That's the effect of what's happened in that court decision. And I think it is tragic that the Supreme Court of the country has written more law that's going to attribute, in my judgment, to the further breakdown of law and order in our country.
I have come here because our great nation is troubled, more divided than we have been for 100 years, divided by a difficult, costly war abroad and by bitter, destructive crises here at home, divided by our age, by our beliefs, by the color of our skin. And I want to help to end these divisions. I run for the presidency because I do not believe that these bitter divisions are necessary for our country, are necessary for the United States of America in the year 1968 or 1969 or as we go into the 1970s. I run for the presidency because I believe it is time that all of the people of the United States began to work together.
Well, first, there are no new developments. The public has been made aware of every development that has taken place. The simple facts are that the ship made a cruise, a normal routine cruise to the Sixth Fleet in the Mediterranean, and was on her way home. She made her last position report on the 21st of May, and subsequent to that time we have not been in contact with her. When she did not arrive on schedule in Norfolk, well, of course, we instituted a rather extensive search operation, which is still underway, utilizing submarines, aircraft, and surface ships, and all of the techniques and specialized methods that we have available today. But I want to assure you that there's nothing at all other than simply the fact that the ship did not arrive as scheduled.
Our party is a major party, and it's a major party because the people in our country have seen where they've been misled by much of the press and news media, and if the press and news media and those in government don't stop supporting those who advocate the disobedience of unjust laws and allow people to obey the laws they want to obey, then no one's life or property is going to be safe. And the American people are tired of it, and the people in high places in this country have advocated every bit of the anarchy and law violence that happened, and violence and murder that happened in the streets from Selma to Albany to Jackson to Montgomery to Birmingham to Charlotte, and now it has engulfed the entire country. Because they said it was a great holy crusade. When this spawning of this anarchy in our country happened to be in the Deep South, that is, chanting and marching in the streets and taking the law into their own hands. And now, those who have encouraged it in high places have created them a Frankenstein, and I say that we ought to enforce the law and we ought to stop it. And if I become the President of the United States, I am going to stop it, and I'm going to stop it in the nation's capital. And I'm not talking about race either. I want to again say to these magazines and these newspapers who have distorted, and the news mass media, that they have made racists out of people who have been more compassionate in race relations than people in other regions of the country who profess to be liberals. And we are tired of this distortion, and we are tired of some of the distortions about this campaign, about the people of Alabama, and about me. And some of these folks are going to wind up in the not-too-distant future, and they're going to have some good lawsuits on their hand, and we're going to let them see if they can continue to berate and degrade the people of not only our region, but those who represent them.
Many of you are wondering about the remainder of the cabinet appointments which have not yet been announced. Frankly, we have not yet had sufficient time to make all the decisions which must be made in this connection. However, I do want to state that some members of the cabinet of Governor Lurleen Wallace have indicated a desire to return to private endeavors. Others have indicated a desire to remain in their present positions. All have offered their resignations in a spirit of propriety and cooperation. As quickly as possible, decisions will be made on all cabinet positions, and these will be announced as soon as each decision is made. I think you're aware of these. These have been reported from time to time. Governor Wallace is very prominent nationally now, and of course our country has been engaged in a series of crises, it seems, relating to the effort to maintain domestic tranquility and peace and order, and it seems that each occurrence causes a new outbreak of threats. They're threats made not only on him personally, but upon his children, members of his family. It's a cause of concern to all of us in Alabama, and I'm sure to
people all over the country who have respect for law and order. There has been much speculation in the news media about my relationship with former Governor George Wallace. It appears appropriate to clarify my position fully at this time. In 1964, I was a candidate for presidential elector pledged to Governor Wallace and was overwhelmingly nominated by the people of Alabama in the Democratic primary. I enthusiastically supported him in his presidential campaign during that year. You are aware that recently I was nominated in the Democratic primary as presidential elector, again pledged to Governor George Wallace. From the time of his inauguration in January of 1963 to the present time, this distinguished native of Barber County, Alabama, has risen in national prominence to the position of a serious contender for the presidency of the United States. As I have supported him in his every candidacy since 1958, I wholeheartedly support him in this endeavor. Well, there's always that possibility. We have no present plans for a special session. Consultations with department heads. It would be very arbitrary for us to say something that, frankly, we haven't even had time to. The implementation of this court order in this manner, in my judgment, can do nothing but irrevocable harm to the public school system of Mobile County, and if implemented throughout Alabama, to those of our entire state. This is a very serious matter. It's one that we have talked about for years in our state. We've talked about the possibility that such a court order might be entered. It's inconceivable to me that a court would take the position of setting up arbitrary attendance zones requiring students to attend those particular schools when we have had freedom of choice, where students could indicate the school of their choice and be allowed to go there. I've never heard of any child being denied his requested school on freedom of choice. Well, there have been 2 or 3 instances where the population of a school would be doubled by allowing all of them who requested it. But in nearly every instance, certainly, the local authorities have granted the request or honored the request for the designated school. This seems to be a democratic way to go about a problem. And I fear for the public school system if such a policy is followed as is being followed in Mobile County under this court order.
But I say to the citizens all over this country, especially the young people, let's not lose faith in America, and let's not turn to violence. For I truly believe that somehow and someday this problem will be solved. Even though before the problem is solved, it's that Dr. King and Senator Kennedy had to face. But let's continue to pray and live together.
I'm terribly shocked by the tragic event of the shooting last night of Senator Kennedy. I'm also frightened and deeply concerned at what this unbelievable thing portends, a further breakdown in the moral fiber of our country. I know that all Alabamians join me in praying for the complete recovery of Senator Kennedy. The people of this nation are concerned about the breakdown in law and order and the disrespect for law and order. We've always, in this country, expressed our grievances at the ballot box. Now it seems it has become the fashionable thing for those who are aggrieved, real or imagined, to just go out and shoot someone.
Governor, do you fear for your life?
Well, of course, I really... Sorry to talk about that. Well, of course, I really didn't want to get into anything other than talking about the sad happening of the shooting of Senator Kennedy. But as you know, I've been into many spots where we've been assaulted 4 and 5 years ago. And some people didn't pay too much attention to it, but it was there. And we know that all people in public life today run risk because of this breakdown of law and order, but you cannot let that deter you from carrying on or keeping on.
It shall be my purpose, and it is my purpose, to give to this office the full extent of such talents and resources as I possess to meet the responsibilities which have been thrust upon me. To this end, I seek the cooperation, prayers, and assistance of all my fellow citizens. In the words of Governor Lurleen Wallace, with God's help, I will make a good governor. They told us from Mobile County about the situation. Really, all I know about it is what they have told me and what I've read in the newspapers. As I understand it, the Mobile County Board of Education is facing
For Governor Wallace's kids.
because of threats which have been made to the personal safety of former Governor Wallace and his family. I have requested of the Director of the Department of Public Safety that such security be provided to Governor Wallace and his family as may be necessary to protect them from physical harm. Now, it has been so far, believe me, to see any and every citizen who came to the governor's office wanting to see the governor.
Have you had any indication at all that this money will be there, or will we have to prorate, or what?
Don, we're not sure at this time, and of course so it does make for a very difficult situation, and frankly, it's a question. Those people are indicating, according to press reports, that they're going to take their children out of the schools, that they're simply not going to go to school there. There's a very tense atmosphere there. It could endanger, of course, the peace and tranquility that has existed in Mobile County that has enjoyed excellent race relations in Alabama. If this is done and people start setting up private schools and this sort of thing, then of course the public support that goes to that system now, based on the average daily attendance formula that's used under the minimum program fund, would be seriously weakened, that is, reduced, and the school system would lose these funds from its operating funds. And more importantly than that, perhaps, is the fact that if we lose public support for public education in our state, then for those of us who are concerned in trying to improve public education in our state, our task is made more difficult. These problems require public support to be solved, and if the public is no longer faithful and interested in the public school system, then we're not going to be able to meet our responsibilities toward improving public education in Alabama. This, to me, is the real serious aspect of this problem. Yes. I'm very much concerned about the practice of whiskey agents, if we want to call them that, of people who get paid by whiskey companies and who do nothing by way of service in order to justify the money that they receive. It's whatever title or name you give them, it's the same thing. Whether you call a man an agent or a broker or whatever it may be, if he in fact renders no service, then there's something immoral about his drawing pay for that no service, and in my judgment, it reflects on him and on the company which pays him or compensates him, or whatever terminology you want to use. I have long felt that the practice was bad. I introduced legislation to outlaw whiskey agents back in '61 during the last regular session of the Patterson administration. I was one of the sponsors of the legislation in 1963, which was supposed to abolish whiskey agents and which failed to pass. I was also one of the sponsors of the 3% tax, which was a companion bill. The tax passed, and the bill to outlaw the whiskey agents did not pass, as you may remember, in '63. But the intent of the legislature at that time and of the administration then was that there be no whiskey agents, the old political whiskey agents in this state. And as I say, the existence of one or more whiskey agents, in my judgment, is immoral. All of the proceedings that have now transpired, the 57 who were not cited in the show cause order have really not been involved in the case since several months ago now, and we wanted to bring them up to date also and to discuss with them some possible future. The board advised me that the Ezra Brooks Company, and there's the letter, I have a copy of that letter which is in the file over there. Of course, it's available to any of you gentlemen who want to see it. I believe the substance of the letter is that the company is a small company and does not maintain a staff of agents in the field, and therefore does business only through brokers. For that reason, well, the board advised me that the reason they made this arrangement, and it apparently is a legitimate brokerage arrangement, was that the Brooks Company would not do business any other way, and this was back in the right after the passage of the legislation when so many brands were pulling out of Alabama, and they were anxious to get them on. Now, I have to be critical of a brokerage arrangement because of this brokerage arrangement, because as I understand it, the broker here performed no real service. That the orders for the merchandise went direct to the company, were picked up at the company warehouse and hauled to the state warehouse. Checks paying for the merchandise were sent direct to the company. In other words, nothing went through the broker.
Well, do you not have a situation then that you described earlier as immoral?
This is Floyd Mann, Director of the Department of Public Safety. I would like to take this means to urge each of you to drive carefully and defensively during this long Thanksgiving holiday weekend. This begins tonight at 6 o'clock and ends Sunday night at midnight. As you know, also, all the children will be out of school during this weekend, and the traditional Alabama-Auburn football game will be played in Birmingham, bringing thousands of additional motorists on our streets and highways. Hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.
Please drive with extreme care. Not only, of course, do we have Thanksgiving tomorrow, and the traffic that we'll have from that, but school is out for the holidays, and then the big game in Birmingham on Saturday. Our highways are going to be crowded with people. Many of them are going to be in a hurry to get where they're going. So I'd like to urge all of the people of our state to drive very carefully and drive defensively, respect the rights of other people, and watch out for other people who may not be as cautious as you are. Our traffic toll seems to just keep on being bad every weekend, and We're doing things that you gentlemen already know about, Colonel Mann and the department, with special squads going into areas where accident rates have been high, and all sorts of measures like this to try to strengthen our law enforcement, and yet it seems that people just persist in trying to kill each other on the highways, and it's a tragic and senseless waste of life and property. I want to encourage all of our people to be very, very careful. I think so.
Do you intend to take any action on that?
I instructed the board in July to tell Ezra Brooks we couldn't buy any more products from them unless we could buy them direct. We're not going through a broker.
What's been the result of that?
Well, there's some confusion about this. The board instructed the administrator to call the company, and the administrator called the company, and I'm frankly not real clear about what he told them.
It's a facility that has the high hope of assisting in the rehabilitation of brain-injured and neurologically disorganized children. Most of the mentally retarded children of the world are misclassified, are indeed suffering from brain injuries or neurological disorganizations. And this facility will undertake to serve Montgomery and the central Alabama area with a program which will, and has proven itself over the last 8 or 10 years, to be most significant in helping people suffering from either brain injuries or from neurological disorganization.
Well, we hear as many rumors here, or more, I'm sure, than they hear in Washington. They say agents who allegedly have received payoffs. Well, of course, this suit was filed 2 years ago, which named people who were allegedly agents. They caution us to keep these names in confidence until it can be documented. I don't know. I just don't put much stock in the thing, frankly, and I don't mean to question them, but if they have the information, they shouldn't just offer it to us. They ought to go ahead and send it to us. My judgment, of course, they want to suggest to our investigators what documents to subpoena and who should be questioned under oath. We don't have the right to subpoena nor to question under oath anyone. I don't know why they didn't go ahead and say whoever this was and whatever information they had here. I think if we had the right to subpoena, we'd know what documents we needed to see and who should be questioned about things. Well, you know, I'm going to be real frank with you fellas. I don't have much for Pearson, frankly. I don't think his objective is the same as ours would be, and I say this in all charity to him. This letter is very carefully written. I don't want to answer a letter from him and see headlines in the paper tomorrow that Brewer joins Pearson investigation or something like this. You all know what I'm talking about. I'm just...
What do you think his objective is?
Frankly, to sell his column first. Secondly, in furtherance of that objective, to try to find something with enough truth to it that he can get away with printing it without a lawsuit. And I feel that, of course, I'll be very frank with you, I think he has the objective of trying to, quote, get, close quote, George Wallace any way he can. I just got a brief glance at this thing a few minutes ago. I didn't know the ABC board was going to entertain you with a press conference yesterday. But I saw a statement that I assume is a statement that was made to the press yesterday just before we came in here, and I didn't have an opportunity to read it carefully. It's more or less a rehash, I think, of what I'd say in drawn-out terminology and verbiage. It's what I said, I hope, more briefly last week.